and welcome to Handmade Originals. This is the YouTube channel where I take on a variety of creative projects in the hope of giving you confidence and encouragement and maybe even a little bit of inspiration to think you'll have a go yourself. After all, if I can do it, how difficult can it be? So what's my latest project? Well, it's this. My son's girlfriend, Laura, hello Laura, she's embarrassed, is opening very soon a bakery come cafe in the very trendy Walthamstow, and she wants to decorate it in a shabby chic but authentic shabby chic kind of way. So she has bought, I think on eBay or something, some fabulous armchairs which are wooden but have these lovely, very comfortable cushions. However, although the front of these cushions, which let me show you, is this fabulous velvet, although they're in a good state, the back is pretty grim. I've actually started repairing it already, you can see here. So I volunteered to refurbish these cushions for her, and the plan is that I will recover just the back, which is pretty tatty as you can see, and I will take these ties off which come with the original cushion and put new ties on the new piece of fabric which I'm going to cover it with. The other requirement is that Laura doesn't like the brown. She wants it to be a grey, so I'm going to dye this grey, and then because it's going to be used in a public environment, I'm going to spray it with flame retardant so that it complies with building regulations. So I have three, I guess, main stages to deal with. One is the restoration of the backs of these cushions. Another is painting them or dyeing them to charcoal grey, and the third one is flame proofing them. So I've never done this before, to be perfectly honest, so I have to say, find it a little bit daunting. So I followed advice that people always say when you have a big project, which is to break it down. So what I've done, I've broken it down into little joblets, if I can call them that. So I put each little joblet on a piece of paper like this, and I've actually got 9 of them. And then what I can do is line them up to put them in the correct order. So I would have done the repairs first and then dyed and then put flame retardant on, but because one of Laura's parameters is if the dye doesn't work, the cushions are no good, I've decided that I was going to dye some of the fabric first, and I'm going to dye these little, I'm going to dye one of these first, just see how the colour comes out, because if the colour doesn't come out to a colour that she likes, or it's patchy and pretty grim, then there's no point in doing all the rest of the work because they're no good. Anyway, so that's how I'm going to organise what I'm going to do and the order in which I'm going to do it. So I've got these 9 little stickers, and I'm lining them all up across the table, and then I'm going to start at one end and work my way across to the others. So the first thing I'm going to do is dye one of these and see what the colour comes out like. So extraordinarily for me, because I never usually do this, I have actually read the instructions on the dye, and it says, I'm going to use this one by the way, and it says to clean the fabric first. So breaking the habit of a lifetime, I read the instructions, and this is what I'm going to use, but any old carpet or upholstery cleaner I think will do. So I'm just going to quickly, I'm impatient to get started, so I'm just doing this very, very quickly. You should actually open a window. This stuff gets down your throat a little bit. Right, so that's the cleaning on. Now this is just a damp cloth to wipe it off. I'm impatient to get on with the dyeing, so I'm just doing this very, very quickly. Surprisingly for me, I've actually protected the table, as you can see, and I guess what I ought to do is put an apron on because otherwise I'm going to cover myself in dye. Right, for my dye, this is just like a little Indian takeaway dish, so I'm just going to use that just about the right size for my little nail brush, which is what I'm going to use to put the dye on. So I'm just going to put a very small amount in here, having shaken the dye up first to make sure it's the same consistency and colour throughout. And then that's it. I'm going to see how this goes. I'm really interested to see how this comes out. So this is cleaned and slightly damp, which is what the instructions tell me I should do. So, and the joy of this particular dye is that I am reliably informed by manufacturers that it doesn't make the fabric stiff, but it retains the softness of the velvet afterwards. Right. I can't imagine this is terribly interesting to watch, so I'm going to carry on with this and I'll show you it when it's done. And here's one before and after. So this is the one I've just dyed, and this was the original colour. I've shown them to Laura, she's very happy with this. If it dries too light or it looks a little bit too brownish, at the moment it's kind of a mushroomy colour, then we can just always give it a second coat. But the bottom line is she's happy with that and it can only get better. So I'm going to carry on with the repairs to the back of the very torn cushions. So here is probably the most damaged cushion, and I hope that what you can see, it looks a bit like a Frankenstein cushion at the moment, but what I've actually done is I've just done some very loose stitches to literally pull the two sides together, not to overlap them and not to kind of bunch them up like that, but literally edge to edge, so that this is then in the correct shape, so that I can take a template from this to put a fresh bit of fabric over the top. These ties which are on here I'm going to take off, and I've got some new tape here which is the woven cotton tape, which is very strong, and I'm going to attach that to in the same position to the new piece of fabric and then sew it on here. If you ever do anything like this, the key thing here, apart from the not bunching it and not overlapping it, is to try to get the warp, which is the thread that goes up and down, and the weft, which is the one that goes from side to side, lined up so that you don't make it go kind of skew if that makes sense. Anyway, I'm going to press on with this and then I'll show you what happens next. So, just while I'm here, my top tip, if you're ever having to restore tears in a flat cushion like this, it is much easier if you have the right tools, and the correct tool for this will be an upholstery needle, which I think you can see is one with a curve, because that means that when you push it in, this isn't actual sewing, this is just to show you, you push it in here like this, and then it automatically pops up like that. I don't know if you can see that. If I had a straight needle, that would be quite difficult to do because I'd have to sort of push right down to get it up, and it's much more laborious. So the correct tools make a huge difference. So I'm going to repair this, and I'm also going to repair this tear here. And then I am going to use this to make a pattern template, whatever you want to call it, for my new piece of fabric, which will go over the top. Now, because this is already on the cushion, I'm not going to be able to put it under the sewing machine, so I am going to rather laboriously have to hand sew it all the way down there. And when I come to do that, I will have a look to see whether or not it's easier to use this needle, or I've got a variety of other needles which I can try, which are very strong needles with sharp points for sewing sort of sailcloth and canvas material. So I will just experiment with those and see which is the best needle, and I'll come back and show you. I've done most of the repair work on the back of this cushion, but I just want to show you this little bit here. When I'm sewing these bits, these two sides together, I want to line it up. I don't know if you can see on the film the weft and the warp threads, but particularly when you're putting your needle in, you don't put it too close there because this is such deteriorated material. I'm just going to show you here, which is probably an awful thing to do, but if I put that in like that and pull it, you see it literally just pulls the thread off, so you have to come quite a long way back from where the tear is so that you can then pull the two sides together like that. I haven't knotted this, so I just want to put that in there to show you. So, so the thing about refurbishing cushions, which someone else has made, is you have to be a bit of a detective, especially when it's something like this, which is actually quite a complicated cushion. This little piece of fabric here, which tucks under the front of the chair, has a piece of plastic that goes through it like this, and then that gets tucked into like a little valley in the bottom of the chair, so that holds it like that. So this bit, which is the front of the seat, stays in position and doesn't move when somebody's sitting on it or when they get off it. But this bit of fabric here is quite deteriorated, so I'm having to disassemble this. I'm taking this piece off, but I'm keeping this piece because I'm going to then use that as a pattern to make a new piece like that to hold this plastic rod, making sure I don't lose the rod in the meantime, which is very me, and then I'll reassemble it with the new parts in position. Now, you're obviously not going to make exactly the same cushion because this is something that's quite unique, but what you do is you just find an edge that you can keep straight. So this is my selvage edge for my new fabric, and I've just pinned that all along here, so that is anchored there. And then I can mark, I don't know if you can see here, I've used a chalk pencil. I've marked by just feeling where the seam is underneath. If you run your nail along it, you can make a crease and then just mark in there. And then here, if you can see here, I've just felt where the tape is underneath. I'll just show you there. And I've marked it with the chalk pencil. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off and use it as a pattern for the new tape, which I will then sew onto this new piece of fabric before I attach it to the cushion. So as anticipated, sewing the new cotton drill onto the back of the cushions was really hard work. So even though she'd been busy sanding the frames, I managed to pull Laura in to help me. And this made it was still hard work, but it was actually fun too. Laura then reassembled the chairs, and they now take pride of place on the mezzanine floor of Laura's bakery stroke cafe, which finally opened, actually not in December, but on the 22nd of February 2022. And since then, and its name is Beaten by a Whisker, has received rave reviews. Laura's been featured on TV with Ainsley Harriott, and the bakery often has a queue out the door. For the latest news on what Laura's up to, follow Beaten by a Whisker on Instagram.